what are the different security considerations at the different layers of a fintech? And I'm interested in the fact that DevOps has moved from DevOps to DevSecOps. What is data leakage and how does it apply in this world of remote working? So let's say I have a mobile app, or I have a payment gateway, right? Or I have a payment processor. What are the best practices that I need to be in place to make sure I'm thinking about security well? And I'm just wondering, somebody that is bootstrapping their fintech and they don't have license, right? They have managed to get a partnership with a tier 3 bank or even a microfinance bank. And we are here talking about all these things that are FFT, FAFA things. There are some of them I've spoken to, and they're like, Ify, I'm partnering with X bank, Y bank, they are the ones that CBN is going to audit. All these things don't concern me. I pass the transaction over to them, and they are the ones that have the whole security. I shouldn't be bothered. What would you say to those kind of people? Why is the subject of security important? In your vast experience, what kind of breaches have you been made aware of, right? And you're like, this...
Transaction security.
Exactly. So why is it not, from your experience talking with fintech founders, why is it not the first thing they think about? So that was the preamble. If you're just joining us, we are going to move into the main conversation now. And the main conversation, we are going to look at the stack, the fintech stack, and look at how security applies and what kind of security applies to the fintech stack. So, but my next question is, what are the different considerations, the different security considerations at the different layers of a fintech when you're considering security for the different layers of a fintech, right? What should you be considering?
Okay, so there's the back end, which is backend, and that the focus on the backend is infrastructure security. So let's say, for example, you're leveraging AWS or GCP, where you set up your containers or your servers, your virtual servers, and you have hardened your servers, your EDR, next generation firewall, IPS, IDS, data leakage prevention, all those controls you need to ensure, or file integrity monitoring to ensure your code, any change on your programs or your code is identified and reported or prevented. So you harden your backend, and the next steps is you build from a security point of view, which is secure coding. Developers, DevOps guys should, it's not DevSecOps, build with security in mind at every stage. Analyze your code, ensure you build security controls into your code. Same thing for APIs too. Build secure APIs, proper authentication, proper data validation, all that needs to be done at that.
So I think we have temporarily lost. Let me try and get him. But so far, I hope the conversation is interesting at this point. He's using a lot of acronyms. Just write them down. We will discuss some of them in the community. Let me try and get him. Oh, you're back.
Tell me the last thing you heard.
So, you are talking about infrastructure security, and you went on to secure.
No way. Okay, all right.
Yeah, you went on to secure coding, and then I think the last thing you said before you dropped off was you were talking about API security, making sure that the authentication, and then I think you said something about the encryption, data validation and authentication.
So infrastructure, then application and service, then the last phase, the third layer, is the customer experience layer, which is the customers accessing, your products or services or your platform securely, customer data secure, from a customer experience. So I read something today about, I know something even legacy payment companies have been doing in the past, where they'll put secure code or verified by Visa, getting the customer comfortable that, yes, you are considering security or you are putting security controls in place. Of course, multiple factor authentication. While you want customer experience to be seamless and enjoyable, another issue is when fintechs or payment companies focus on an enjoyable customer experience, but not necessarily a secure one. So you want to balance it.
Point.
Enjoyable, but also secure. So it's balancing it. It's balancing it that really matters.
Awesome. So you used a lot of terms, and I'm interested in the fact that DevOps has moved from DevOps to DevSecOps. Interesting. one thing I'd like, for you to shed a lot of clarity on is this term called data leakage. What is data leakage and how does it apply in this world of remote working?
Okay, so data leakage prevention, so it's applied in different ways on systems or platforms. So data leakage prevention is literally just ensuring specific type of data are restricted and controlled. Access to it is controlled, so who can copy, who can view, who can transmit. So to the extent, and I used to see it with guys that work with the big four or tier one banks, and when I was in UBA, so you can't copy files out of your system, you can't do a print screen, you can't send an email to a private domain that has, so you do data classification to meet some security standards, so which is even best practice to classify your data, critical data, non-critical data. So there are some type of data that have been tagged, say confidential. You can't send it out to a public domain, or you can't even send it out to a group. So different rules on the platform. So data leakage prevention actually helps you secure. It could be code, it could be customer data, it could be financial information, it could be proprietary information. So I'm sure today, because I know there was someone talking about, okay, these days where you can do screen recording. And I'll give you an example. So on the social media platforms, the Snapchats, or I think there's some other platforms, you can't do a screen recording to let you know, because immediately you hold the camera to the screen, it gives you a prompt that this person is about to record or copy, and you shouldn't. And I'm sure that's next level today, that you are at work and you're trying to, an instruction, and it used to happen then. Tellers also would snap instructions, send it to an outsider when they do internal collusions for fraud on the bank side. And, all these controls are being put in place to ensure you can't, send out critical or confidential information out of that ecosystem. So yeah, a lot of organizations are subscribing to DLP now, and that's because you need to be able to control or restrict access to your crown jewels, critical data.
Interesting. Good stuff. Thank you. So still looking at, the fintech stack, if I'm a founder, right, so I work with a fintech and I have a fintech product, either a mobile app. So we are very interested in the fact that it's not just a mobile app, it's a mobile app that moves money from one place to the other. So let's say I have a mobile app, or I have a payment gateway, right? Or I have a payment processor. What are the best practices that I need to be in place to make sure I'm thinking about security well?
Okay. So there are a couple of things you need to do. So first is that standard the regulator has coerced you to comply to, PCI and ISO. Ensure you are operationalizing, like internalize it, like practice those policies and procedures, put those controls in place. Don't let it be just during audit. So operational security, establish that, role-based access, identity and access management, password policy, multiple factor authentication, all those things that are in the policy go by that. Then now back to the product, building the product to be secure. If it's code, do source code analysis, ensure your code is rich, ensure your code is secure. Payment gateway, let it be behind the web application firewall. Same thing for web platforms too, behind the web application firewall, keep it secure. Then most importantly, carry out frequent security assessment. They call it vulnerability assessment and pen testing. Carry out regular vulnerability assessment and pen testing. So the acceptable, I won't say it's acceptable, but the recommended frequency is quarterly. Quarterly helps you comply to some standards, whether it's ISO, PCI, even CBN as a requirement. Some organizations do biannual, but we recommend quarterly. In fact, we have a fintech, one of our customers that does every 2 months. And it's a finance related fintech. So I'm sure they are very particular about, the finance, the money part. Also, because they are a new fintech, they are probably innovating, making changes, new module, new feature. And it's important every time there's a new module, a new feature, an assessment is done, a review is done to confirm that while creating this, we didn't expose that. So while innovating and creating, we've not opened the back door, or we've not open the hole. So you do an assessment to confirm there are no vulnerabilities, no exposures, and then you go back to production. So I think you can't overstate the need for security assessments, and they help you confirm threat risks with regards to your infrastructure and ensure you are remediating as they come. So you need to always be ahead of the curve, because the attack vector landscape is continually evolving and there will always be new attack vectors. It could be a component on your platform, maybe your Apache's version needs an update, it could be anything. And it's an assessment at that next quarter that would let you know that and let you remediate it. So
interesting. So these are interesting things you've spoken about. So high level, you're complying with the regulator, whatever standards of the organizations that you are in. And then you're also looking at securing the product. But I like to keep these conversations as realistic as possible, right? And I'm just wondering, somebody that is bootstrapping their fintech and they don't have license, right? They have managed to get a partnership with a tier 3 bank or even a microfinance bank. And we are here talking about all these things that are FFT, FAFA things. And I'm just wondering, if you look at the fintech landscape, right, that diagram, 3/4 of those people are unlicensed. They are third-party people that are focused on generating or writing applications for POS terminals for mobile phones, right? And they are partnering with other people. There are some of them I've spoken to, and they're like, Ify, I'm partnering with X bank, Y bank, the big boys, Zenith, UBA, whoever. They are the ones that CBN is going to audit. All these things don't concern me. I pass the transaction over to them, and they are the ones that have the whole security. I shouldn't be bothered. What would you say to those kind of people?
Okay, so I will tell them that size does not matter. A security breach will come at you once they find you, as in they're always. So I'll give you an example. Typically, script kiddies are crawling the web for open ports or platforms that are not secure. So you're a third party, you're providing service to a big boy, Zenith. The good thing these days is the big boys have come up with a third party risk assessment program where they ensure third parties comply to stand. So I'll give you an example. One of our customers is a digital bureau de change. Of course, in my mind, I'm like, why would you need any? CBN is not after you now. And dude is like, no, we're trying to plug into this bank, want to do cards, want to do they have lofty ideas, around FX. And the bank is saying, hey, come show me your PCI certificate. While they were consulting with us, I also pitched for them to do ISO 27001. And why? Because so they can have a security program in place and not get carried away. The idea is, once you have a security program in place, whether you want to recruit a CISO or not, but you can subscribe to a vCISO service or just subscribe to a managed security service provider and, trust them with your business because that's what you signed for, So you probably want to consider that. And also based on your size, they would fit into your budget because truth is size matters when it comes to costing from a security perspective. So have that conversation, engage that security company, and then discuss your budget. So, and I'll give you an example. We have a couple of unicorns on our client list now, and we started with them when they had not gotten funding. And today they pay us better, without negotiating too much. But we started with them and we grew with them. So for the guys that are third parties and think they are small or they are not under the regulator, they should think about the continuity of their business or, the longevity of the business. So
interesting.